Right. Scoot back. All right. So another live video on a near-death experience. Just waiting for my participant to join. Matter of minutes. Let's see. All right. And my notes ready. And let's see if he can join soon. He's running the person I'm interviewing has a very interesting story. I think he came across my video where I talked about um someone else who what was her who was it? Whose video did he come across? It was Abby's video where she talked about her experience with ayahuasca and how it propelled her to finding her purpose in this realm. Um, so he reached out to me and he left a pretty interesting comment that caught my attention. And I think I have it in my email actually. I'm going to address it to him later on. But this is, I know my notes are all out of whack. And thank you all for who's on the live right now. Just bear with me for a second. Mm. Once I pull up my email to him. So I have it in my notes and I really want to address this. But he left a very detailed description of his near-death experience. Not when I tell you guys, I really enjoy talking about these near-death experiences. Like I found out a lot about myself and just through other people. And I'm going to keep doing this. So if you have your own near death experience and you want to share, let's go ahead and shoot me an email because I think we all have something to share, whether it is a near death experience or something that's triggered you to change something about your own life. I'd be glad to hear it. It doesn't have to be a near death experience, it doesn't have to be ayahuasca. It could just be anything that just was a spark. And I can tell you guys a personal spark of mine. I went to the Walter Russell experience, and I sat down by this quote by Lau Russell, Walter Russell's wife, and it said how only you can find the imbalance within your own life. And I literally sat at this quote for maybe about 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, just stared at it because I was just like, wow, I think the imbalance in my life is work. Like I'm overworking myself and I'm not spending time with family. I'm not doing all this stuff that allows me to connect with family. And I think that that is where I did like a seesaw and I saw like work was outweighing the my happiness. Like so only you can find the happiness in your life through the imbalance. And I don't think that's the quote in full terms, but that is what I came across. I think he's in the waiting room, actually. Stand by. Nope, he is still not there. But yeah, I came across this quote and it pretty much said that I can find the imbalance, and I found it. So that's when I started making more content about living in the moment, being present when it comes to time, because time is short. We don't want to waste it, like especially in this lifetime, this particular incarnation. It's short. You look at this. Well, I don't have a clock behind me, but I'm just saying, if I did have a regular clock, you'll see the different hands on it. You have your minute hand, your hour hand, your second hand. And it's as if the second hand is the hand that most people neglect. And that is the fastest hand. And that's the hand that literally represents the time of our life. So knowing that is just like, how do you want to spend your life? Do you want to spend it just doing something that you don't love, or do you want to spend it doing something that you do love? And I love doing this with you all. I don't know where in particular it's going to take me, but I don't know. I think that this is we are in 2023. If you look in numerology, 2023 is the year of self-reflection, where we find out about ourselves, because you add up 2 + 2 + 3, that's 7. So 2023 is the universal year of 7, where we learn a tremendous amount about ourselves through deep inner reflection. And that's what I feel like I've been doing, is learning about myself vicariously through others. And I think you look at these solar flares that's been happening. I'll address that in a different video in a different time. But long story short, these massive solar flares, I think they're the X class flares, like they've been sending us these light codes, upgrading and activating our latent DNA. Because when we die, we have like 98% non-coding DNA that becomes active once we do die. So these light codes, they are being sent through these solar flares, like they're entering the Earth's atmosphere and they're being received in our body, and our bodies and our brains are like supercomputers. We are literally being activated with this latent DNA. So the inner genius within us is starting to unlock. I have this I think the first solar flare was in January. Yeah, January. I don't remember the particular date, but there was another solar flare after Valentine's Day, around the 17th of February. So when these solar flares come, you'll start to have headaches, fatigue, these different body aches, or these different pains within us, where we start to become we're upgrading. Now I'm not that much of a painter, and I just think that something just told me to create this mountainside landscape. This is like my first painting. Something literally told me to paint it. The yin and yang, the balance, the duality, and balancing the different energies within ourselves. But I was in a hillside of Swannanoa, Virginia. Was it Swannanoa? No, it was Waynesboro, Virginia, most random spot in Virginia. And I just decided to paint at this Walter Russell experience. And this is what came to my mind: the mountains and the not your typical skyline, but the yin and yang was very important. I think because my girlfriend likes yin and yang, but I'm not that much of an artist, but I feel like there's something activating within me that's saying how we need to create. We need to be creators and whatnot. And I also have this highlighted, where I will begin to read that, because this is like a life study course. So listen to this. And when I read this, I say God, because that's what at the time like they believed in. But it could be God, it could be source, it could be the universe. And it says, the one thing which man has not realized in the building of his individual or collective destiny is that God will work with him in unfolding of his destiny, but he will not work for him. You must knowingly create yourself, your destiny with him in accordance with his law of balance, interchange in all transactions. To work with God knowingly, you must know God in his ways. You can know God only by knowing yourself as mind instead of thinking of yourself as a sensed body. What I tell you, this is the year of 2023. This is the year of self-reflection. And that's what I feel like I've been doing. So now you all have been listening to me talk and ramble, and my guest is finally on. All right. We're about to get deep in this. Hello? All right. Let me see. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear and see you.
What's going on, Ivan?
Not much, man. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Did you get everything squared away?
Oh, yeah, finally.
Yo, like I was looking forward to this interview. Like I was telling everyone, really enjoyed doing this, and I am glad you were taking the time out of your busy day to talk to me. So first and foremost, I want to get that out the way and express a form of gratitude, because I am appreciative of you willing to share your experience. Like that's really big. It
Yeah,
means a
man.
lot.
Yeah, and definitely, and I also want to thank you, for giving you're giving a voice to a listening ear, and I think that's important of you. So I'm grateful for that.
Well, no,
Can you see me at all?
I cannot see you. It is on a blink screen. Like I think I don't know if you accepted the little video where it says start video. I don't, because I know how you say you don't really do Zoom meetings. I didn't really start doing them until now, to be real.
Yeah. I don't know. Hang on. Let me see if I can figure this out.
No, you're good.
Back to meeting. Oh, start video.
Yep.
Oh, there we go. I think it worked.
There you go. What's going on?
All right, cool. There we go. Yeah. See, this is new to me, so I have no idea what's going on.
So,
but go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. First and foremost, thank you for coming on. Like now that I can see you, we're making this face-to-face connection. I'm not going to hold too much of your time. I'm going to just take an hour out of your day to talk about your experience. But the first thing I want to address is a question, right? You left a dime in the comment section where I was wondering if you would be willing to elaborate, where I believe someone was asking, like, how do you get in touch with this source or whatever, right? Where like you commented on what was Abby's video where she found her purpose through psychedelics, and like somebody commented, how do you find your purpose? And you literally said health, educate the mind and body, heal, and this will strengthen your, let me see, it's not fully it will strengthen your soul, learn to listen to the heart as you silence the mind. Can we please elaborate on that, just to start the conversation alone?
Yeah, definitely. Well, the reason why I believe that is because I feel, I truly believe that we're spiritual beings here to live a physical existence. And with that said, I personally believe that health is actually entirely spiritual. My personal opinion. And the reason why I believe that is because, like, let's say, for example, you have let's say, for example, somebody has $1 million house, right? And somebody has the fancy supercar, right? A lot of people congratulate them for having those things, but they would never imagine the work that it took to get that thing. So when I look at spirituality and health, when people have, a great mind or a great physicality, that was that was just like a destination. You know what I'm saying? But that wasn't the goal. The goal was to keep on going, and that's where your spirit comes in. Every time you wake up and you say, I don't want to do this, that's exactly what you have to do. Because now there's this inner battle within you that's going to ask, are you willing to be great? Are you willing to quit? You know? Um, and when it comes to our health, strength isn't found by how much weight we could push. Strength is more so found on our willingness to never give up. So when we learn that strength is found in our willingness to never give up, we realize that we truly don't have a limit. you know so yeah, so that's I mean, I don't know if I drifted off topic or anything, but
No, that's well, I wanted to start off with that because like a lot of people they don't know how to quiet the mind. And meditation is one of those things that it takes practice, and it's one of those things that I can't stress that does quiet the mind. It does allow you to seek those answers within yourself, as opposed to looking everywhere else like therapy and all that stuff. I'm not knocking therapy, but I'm saying
right.
like we have the answers that we seek literally lie within us. But first, to find those answers, you have to quiet the mind. So that's why I kind of really appreciated that comment, because when you look at the quantum physics aspect of it, for example, and I don't want to get too deep, but you look at us here in this 3D plane, and this 3D plane, like you look at the straight line, I look at that as mind. You look at the 2D plane, that's two angles, that's body. You look at the 3D, that's mind, body, and soul all coming together. So we are all like in this plane. The inner God within us is in this plane experiencing all perspectives from a 3D form. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate that comment. And now we're going to get into your experience of, because I feel as if people who have had near-death experiences, they just come back in some like really enlightened, like in your whole perspective of life is just completely changed afterwards. So the floor is yours, and we're all here to listen. I'm just going to take notes on your experience if you don't mind. So you do have my attention, but if I'm looking away, it's because I'm typing and listening to you at the same time.
Yeah.
Question.
Yeah. So oh, and also one thing that I want to say when it comes to silencing the mind, when it comes to like meditation or prayer, whichever terminology you decide that you want to follow, what it means is just getting to know thyself. And getting to know thyself, something that I personally say a lot in the house here, is I'd rather get to know the devil than pretend that he doesn't exist. That's my personal thing. And the reason why I believe that is because once I get to know the devil that's in front of me, I realize that there's nothing more to fear. It's just a simple matter of, how knowledgeable am I on that thing? You know what I'm saying? So personally, that's why I believe that, meditation is important. And the way that silenced the mind is when we really listen to the chatter that's going on in between our ears. Most of the time that chatter is involving things that we're not knowledgeable about. And one way to help silence the mind is to recognize what are you less knowledgeable of and begin to educate yourself on that thing. So personally for me, thankfully now I've been on a health journey. I'm down. I went from 260, I got down to 180. I got down to 170 and I went back up to 180 just because I didn't like how it looked. But
congrats.
Thank you. Thank you. For me, that was like it's been a real journey with that, because I've been overweight my entire life. My entire life I've been overweight. And I remember before my daughter was born, like I really had to look at myself in the mirror and ask myself, is this the man that I want to see that needs to raise her? You know what I'm saying? Or is there something greater that I haven't discovered yet? Because prior to my daughter being born, I used to get winded just walking up a flight of stairs. Easy. Like that was my kryptonite. walking up a flight and a simple flight of stairs like that, it could have been 8, 10 steps. And I was at the top catching my breath as if I just ran a Rocky, you know, they're like
Yeah.
on the Rocky steps, So, and I had to really self-reflect, and I really had to decide, like, the day that my daughter is of age to like ride a bike or, to do anything like that, I want to be the one to teach her. I feel it's important that I'm the one that's there. I don't wanna have somebody else teach her, or I don't want somebody else for her to look up to. I'm not saying that she can't look up to other people, but why can't I be that one first? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's really stopping me if not me? You know?
Y- Yo, that's really deep. You know what you just reminded me of, like the Michael Jackson song "Man in the Mirror," like how he said he's starting with the man in the mirror. You were looking at yourself in the mirror, and he said if you want to, like, you have to take a look at yourself and change, especially if you want to change the world. If your daughter is the world, so you got to start with you, the inner work within you, in order to make that change. And that very powerful. I think that, yeah, you have to dive internally before you, because everything that is existing internally manifests externally.
Right.
So all, if you're healed on the inside, it'll show on the outside.
Yeah.
And now it is showing, like, you did the work, you looked yourself in the, that's, I think a lot of people don't do that. Like, they take a look at themselves in the mirror and just think like, I don't want to be here no more. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be like this. What are we going to do to change this? And you
Right.
did that. So congrats, man.
Yeah,
That's
man. Thank you. Thank you. And I do want to encourage anybody to say, like, if anybody has doubts, don't doubt yourself. The fact that you're doubting yourself is the very reason why you're not doing it. But the moment that you get rid of the doubt and you step aside from it and realize that there's nothing to doubt, then the entire world is at your lap. Just go get it.
yeah.
You
So
know?
now, did you, to question more about that, did you go to the gym a lot and then you change your eating like lifestyle like that? Because we all know, like, the gym and the eating
Yeah.
are precedent than actually physically working out. So I think that for a lot of us is a hard milestone to overcome. Like, it is really hard to overcome just changing the ways you eat, changing those particular habits. How did
Yeah.
that impact you?
So the way it started for me was we used to have a cat. He passed away. He had health issues. And then soon after that, we got a dog because, we felt it was time to move on. And when we seen his pictures online, we just thought he was a regular dog. We didn't think anything of it. When we went to go get him at the shelter, he was like extremely malnourished. Like his ribs were showing, his hair was brittle, his head was way too big for his body. It just didn't look good. And so what I decided to do was I decided to work him out every single day. Every single day, we started off with a block, and then we went 2 blocks, and then we went a mile, and then we went 2 miles, and then we went 4 miles. And it just kept on progressing. It wasn't an overnight thing. It was something that, I was looking at his health, and I was seeing how much happier he was and like where it was benefiting him. And I was seeing his coat, have more of a polish to it. I was seeing his body starting to fill out more. He looked more of a healthy dog. And I remember there was this point where I was really invested into like getting him the best foods and what foods are good for his body and what could be beneficial to him. And I went down this rabbit hole. And then I looked at myself and I'm like, why am I willing to put this much of investment into somebody else, into something else, but I'm not willing to do it for myself? You know? So along with me looking after my dog's health, I started to look into different foods. I started to, I continued to walk because I began to enjoy it. I enjoyed it because I was seeing the benefits of my dog, to be honest, you know, and that's what kept me going. And then I shed some weight and it was enough for me to see in the mirror. And I'm like, okay, so, there's actually something happening. So, and then I continued the walks. And along with the walks, then I got into healthier foods. Like, what is like, why are, like, this is one thing I want to understand. If people are constantly sick, right? And we just came out of a health crisis a couple years ago. Why aren't we asking ourselves the biggest question? you know. And for me, the biggest question was, if I am sick, why not take care of my health within a health crisis? Like in my mind, like that was such an obvious question that I could not ask myself, you know? And when I finally did ask myself, I had a bigger dilemma on answering that because I couldn't find a reason not to, you know? So then I started to get into fruits and veggies, not only eating them, but also want to read about them because I want to understand the why. Because one thing that I also realized is the biggest question that we lack as a human race is to ask the question why. And the reason why I feel like that's a huge question that we miss is because if you look at all the questionnaire groups, why is the only one that asks directly for the truth? There's no other question that asks directly for the truth. Every other question can dance around the truth, and you may find the truth somewhere, but why is the only one that asks directly for it? You know? And so I want to know the why with my food groups. Like, why was I eating this? Why aren't I eating that? If this benefits me more, why am I eating less of this and not so much of that? You understand what I mean? So
Yeah.
it just put me down this huge rabbit, like, like what are we really doing here? You know, am I here to just waste time, or is there something that's right in front of me that I can't see? You know? And so this happened in April of 2021 over to about, and my accident happened in August of 21. So I'm gonna drift over into that. So right now we're in between April and we're drifting over into the summertime of 21. So so from there, I had this pit in my stomach, right? And I didn't tell anybody about it. And I'm working out and I'm doing good. You know, we're pregnant. We're about 5, 6 months at this point. And I remember I had this pit in my stomach and I kid you not, I couldn't shake it. This pit was telling me that my time was coming. Like it was distinct. There was no shaking it. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It told me clearly that my day was coming. It didn't tell me when, it didn't tell me how. It just told me that it was coming. And to be honest, even though I didn't say anything, like it really scared me because, like I have a baby girl on the way and that's the last thing that you want to feel. You know what I mean? Especially this is, biologically, this is my first and only child. You know what I mean? So so yeah, it was real conflicting during that time. And and also during that time I've had, personally I've had a lot of issues with my father. Um not anything out of the ordinary, just your typical issues from, growing up within an inner city society. You know what I mean? He is married to my mom, and but he was always just that. You know what I mean? He was just married to my mom. Like I didn't have that one-on-one bond with him. I didn't have that father son, like, hey pops, can I talk to you? I didn't have any of that. If anything, I was always the one being ridiculed, um, and things taken out on. But that's the past. So the reason why I mentioned that is because, there's been a real thick barrier between him and I because of that, because so much callous in between the years. And I remember one day, now we're in July of 21. So now we're in July of 21, and I was at my grandparents' house. Um, and I'm just listening to them talk, nothing crazy. And I hear them talking about my dad when he was little. And interesting enough, the things that I've gone through were the same things that he went through when he was my age. So that's when something clicked for me. I realized then it's not that my dad ever hated me, because I truly believe that he hated me at one point. It's not that he ever hated me. It's just that he only gave me what he knew he could. And there's a difference between those two. And in my mind, those lines were blurred, because instead of me being grateful for what I did have, because he was in my life. Absolutely. It wasn't the best days. Not every day was a good day, but absolutely he was in my life and I never lacked anything. I was able to eat. I was able to, I had clothes on my back. Um, so I was really just taking things for granted. Um, but when I learned that he also went through those things, that's when I that's when, for me, I decided to forgive him, internally forgive him, not just say it out loud, but I had an inner peace within myself where I was like, you know what? Like, it really wasn't entirely his fault. I don't believe that everything that happens in our life is our fault, but I do believe that we should be holding ourselves accountable for all things that happen within our lives. Um, so I did decide to forgive him. And so that happened at the end of July of 21. And now we're in August of 21. So August of 21, or excuse me, I skipped one part. So along with me forgiving him, I remember there was a wholeness in my heart. Like I felt like I was no longer missing anything, and that was a real, like, that was a very, for me personally, that was a very big moment, because I didn't realize that that piece was missing until it came in, you know, but subconsciously in the back of my mind, I knew that there was something there that I just couldn't, like, put my finger on. You know what I mean? I don't know if that's a little confusing or not, but
No,
it felt.
no, I'm list. I got you because I'm thinking of like the the mirror image of yourself being played out, and that's like what allowed you to forgive them. It's like your heart became light as a feather now because that
Yeah,
trauma cleared. And I know you're getting ready to lead into your moment, but I also make notes with that particular point because that heart being light as a feather is like when you look at ancient Kemet, they talk about how the heart has to be light as a feather when you are judged in your final, like after you pass. And it's just like you had that karmic debt relieved because it was your own shadow work through someone else. You saw a mirror image of you and you realize like I don't have this animosity or uh anything resentment because I understand where he came from at that point. So
yeah.
yeah, that's what I'm picking up from it.
No, no,
So
no. I'm glad, because that's exactly, I agree with what you're saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. So so now we're in August of 21, and we decided to go hiking. We decided to go hiking about 2 hours away. It was on the border of PA and New York. Um, so we decided to climb a boulder, and the boulder was about roughly roughly about 15 feet high. I mean, I don't know an exact measurement, but if I were to guess, I'll say somewhere close to about 15 feet. And so it was my brother, my cousin, um, my stepdaughter, and I. And I was so cautious on looking out for their footing that they wouldn't trip or they wouldn't stumble of any kind, that I ended up tripping and stumbling over a rock myself. So right when I turned around, I tripped over a rock, and I fell midair, dove head first, and I kid you not, that was the longest fall of my life. Simply because, like, when I was in the midair, all I remember hearing is my girl screaming from the gut, bro. Like, I can't even imagine. Like, I can't make that up. She was screaming from the gut, and like you heard the pain that was coming from her. You know, um, the last thing I saw was a rock that I was approaching that I ended up hitting face first, and that's when lights out. That's when the lights out. Well, that's when the lights went out for me. Um, but the last thing I thought was I really wasn't going to get to meet my daughter, and for me, that's when I was truly convinced that I wasn't going to make that fall. I wasn't going to come back from that. Because it was tough. It was real tough. Like, even though that drop in real time lasted a moment or two, for me, like, I could play it out in slow motion. Like, I remember everything, and like her screaming, me thinking that, me seeing the rock, and then eventually the rock ended up hitting my eye socket. It hit me forehead, nose, cheek, and then everything in between, and lights out. So the lights go out, and I remember it was completely dark. Like, it was pure darkness. There was zero light in that space. And it felt like my body was drifting. it felt like it was drifting away and I couldn't get back to it. It almost felt like no matter how hard I tried to run towards it or to move towards it, um, it kept on getting further. And I was doing this in that space. I was doing it for thousands of years, multiple of thousands of years. It just kept on. It felt endless. It truly, truly felt endless. It felt like, honestly, there's not anything I can really compare it to. It just felt like you're in this dark void space and you're there for an endless amount of time. And the only thing you can like experience is, for me anyways, I don't know who else experienced this, but for me personally, the only thing I experienced was, I remember I felt extremely hopeless, I was extremely lonely, and I was like extremely fearful. Like those three words specifically come to mind when I think of that day. And um and i had and those feelings were left with me the entire time I was in there for those thousands of years. And it felt like no matter how hard I was trying, I just couldn't get out of that space. So within that space, there was a voice that was talking to me. And this voice, it was my voice, but it wasn't talking to me as a friend. It was talking to me as if I never knew it. And it was urging me to get up. And it's saying, Ivan, get up. Ivan, get up. And it keeps on going. And it gets stronger with every time it says it. And I remember, as hard as I was trying, it's just, I couldn't. I was ready to give up. I truly, truly was ready to give up. And I remember where there was a moment where where I did decide to, say, forget it. Let's just go. Because it seemed endless. It seemed hopeless. I didn't feel like I was gonna get back. So I was ready to just let go of my body and go wherever it took me. But during that moment, it felt like there was a slight pause. Not an extreme pause, but very slight. And that slight pause, I remember I seen my family's faces. I see my mom's face, my dad's face, my brother, my girls. And I remember looking at their faces, and I wanted to tell them how bad that I loved them. I want to really tell them, you know, like, whatever we have going on between us, it isn't worth it. I love you guys. I just want to be in your life, you know? And the moment I decided that, all of a sudden I had this rush of energy that came instantly. And and I was able to wake up from that. I was able to come back to this physical existence. And and I remember before I actually opened up my eyes, um, I was in my head talking shit already. I don't know if you allow cursing at all or not.
No, you're good.
All right. So, because I like being honest.
I'm gonna grab my charger, an extension cord for my charger. So hold that thought for 1 second, because I didn't think my phone would be tripping already, but there it is. But no, I allow cursing. It's fine. When I upload it, it literally says it's not made for children, so it's all good.
All right, cool. Yeah, because I was trying to reserve certain words I was using, but personally for me, I like to, the way I feel, that's how I like to speak. You know what I mean?
Be you. All right. You're all good now.
Good? All
Yep.
right, cool. So yeah. So, I was able to wake up from that. And I remember before I actually opened up my eyes, I was in my head talking shit. I said, watch me open my eyes and everybody's gonna be surrounding me except for my dad. Right? Sure enough, to my surprise, I opened my eyes and my dad was the only one there. Everybody else was still in shock. Everybody else couldn't believe that I just had such a high fall. And when I opened my eyes, I was physically in his arms and he was helping me up. That's when I learned the greatest lesson of my life. Truly. That's when I truly, truly, like, at my grandparents' house, I forgave them. But that's when I learned why. And it was, I don't know, man, like, my dad's cool. He really is. Like, I've taken a lot of stuff for granted, you know? And I appreciate him. I really do. Because if it wasn't for any of those hardships, my entire life would have played out so different. And personally, I reached a point in my life where I truly enjoy my life. I truly, truly love the life that I have. I love my family. I love my girls. I love my dog and my cat. I love my parents and my brother. I love everybody. So even though I've had hardships in the past, I'm extremely grateful for everything that I've been through. You know, um, so that was in August of 21. So now, me mentioning that I had that feeling that my day was coming. Um, the moment I've awoken from that accident, I've never felt that feeling again, not one time. And to make it even deeper than that, a couple weeks after that, I would say like maybe 3 or 4 weeks after that, I was still shaken up by the accident because like that was no joke. Like that's something that I can't really talk to somebody about. I mean, I can, but what are the chances that somebody's gonna relate to me on a level that I need that understanding? You know what I mean? Like those odds are slim, especially if this is something that I wasn't seeking out. I was hiking and boom, I fell and that happened. So there was no preparation prior, you know. So I was pretty shaken up by that. I was shaken up for I would say like maybe a month or maybe longer. But about 3 or 4 weeks in, I remember I was talking to my girl about it and I was telling her how I felt and the pit that I had and what that pit told me and how I said I felt like that was gonna be my last day. And she looked at me like kind of jaw dropped. And she was like, I didn't want to tell you, but the entire pregnancy, she felt the exact same way about me, but she didn't want to say anything because she didn't want to freak me out. Yeah. So that was the craziness of it all. So but she said it was the exact same feeling. She said that it was unshakable for her too. She knew exactly what that feeling said. And same thing for her. After that day, the feeling completely went away for her too, against me. Yeah. So yeah, so now we're in September. My daughter's born. I was grateful to be there for her, for her birth and to be in her life this entire time. So now we're in October. So now October of 21, my daughter's, she's only a few weeks old, maybe a month at this point. My dad comes through. He brings a gift. He wants to see her. It's all good. And it was only him and I in the house. And I took advantage of the opportunity and I said, hey, like I want to talk to you. So we sat down, we talked, and pretty much, excuse me, pretty much I wanted I wanted an apology from him. And the reason why I wanted that apology is because I felt like I've had a difficult life with him, you know, and I just wanted him to look at me in my eyes and just apologize. But considering everything that I've learned over the past few months, it wasn't it wasn't that I needed an apology from him. It was that I needed to ask forgiveness, for myself. So I looked at him and I asked to say, hey Pops, can you forgive me? And he was like, why? And I told him, I said, because this entire time, metaphorically speaking, this entire time, all I wanted you to do was just give me $10,000. But and I realized it's not that you didn't want to give me $10,000. It's just that you didn't have $10,000 to give, you know, and I wasn't being appreciative of what you have given me. So so that was the day that me and my dad we talked it out. We truly forgave each other. We put everything behind us. And a couple days after that, I remember I was getting ready for bed one night, and I went into this vision, right, where I went inside of my own mind. And within my own mind, it was like imagine the largest library in the world. Like it's endless. It just keeps on going. And all of these books are coming towards you. And even though you're reading the books, you also already know what they're saying. You already know what they're teaching. You already know everything that the book possesses, but you're still studying it, you know? And it was happening at like such a fast rate. All these books were coming towards me. I was gaining the knowledge. I was reading new books. I was learning new knowledge. And then from there, I I actually went out of body, and I was able to see the earth from a space point of view. And I remember it was like I was looking at the air. It was like the air had like a pink tint to it, and it was literally radiating off of the earth and into space, and it was endless. And then that's when God told me that his love is endless. It keeps on going. There's such an abundance that there's no need to be envious of what anybody else has. What you have or what you got, you already have. What you need, you already have. All you have to do is just go get it. you know so from there, I that's when that's when I went to a realm, a spiritual realm. And within the spiritual realm, I've only seen everybody looked at as a soul. Everybody was only a soul in that place. And and I remember it was very dim lit, and there was millions of us, endless amount of us, and we were like in a very compact space. Like the ceiling was just above us, and we was in a very compact space. None of us could move much, and it was very dim lit. It was very it was very dark and dim lit, and I looked down at myself, and I too was dim lit. And I remember I got pulled from that place above the roof, and I got pulled into another realm above that, and it was another realm that was very light, and it was very bright, and it was very there weren't as many of us there, you know and I tried looking down. I looked down at myself, and I went from dim lit to becoming light. And when I looked behind me, there was a light as large as the sun. Like it was honestly unfathomable on how large that light was. And the strength of that light was so strong that the moment I tried to look at it, I instantly had to give it my back. But it wasn't me giving it my back out of disrespect, but in more so out of respect, because I couldn't bear like the strength that was coming off of it. You know what I mean? Yeah, man. And that was honestly, like, that was a really beautiful moment for me. The reason why that was such a beautiful moment for me is because even though I was in that place for a temporary moment, like, I can't describe it, man. It's like everything was perfect. Everything was perfect. The sky was perfect. The temperature was warm. The clouds were light, but they were supportive. Like I can't explain it. Like there's literally not a word. There's literally not a word that describes what that place was. If I were to give it a word, and this word probably won't even do justice, like, honestly, it felt like home. That's what it felt like. It felt like home. It felt like I was homesick for so long that when I finally got home, I forgot what this felt like. You know, like it was interesting. I've never experienced nothing like that. And mind you, I'm not on no substances. I'm not doing none of that. You know, um, I was sober at that time. I was cool. And then let's see what happened after that. After that, honestly, man, after that, it's just that's when everything changed. I woke up one day. Um, now before I continue, now I can go over into like more extreme parts. Are we looking to do that as well?
Yeah, man. Look. I'm typing these notes and unpacking because we have a lot to unpack. But I'm letting you flow because you were in that state where you're just giving all this information, and I know where you were.
Yeah,
Akashic records, like you were in that space when you talk about this library, this realm that you were pulled into, where you were reading the books and giving you all this knowledge. I know because I've been there in a different way, where these books literally give you information. You could see literally every life you lived, and it's highlighted. There's so many
yeah,
different So you are tapping into cosmic knowledge, etheric knowledge. This is beautiful, honestly. So of course you can keep going.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And that's comforting that you say that you've been through that, because honestly, I haven't met anybody else who's been through that. Like, I've heard stories, and I'll talk to somebody here and there, but it just seems like, I don't know, it seems like when I talk to those people, they're going off of somebody else's knowledge. You know what I mean? It doesn't seem like it's an experience that they've experienced, you know?
It's your journey. The spiritual journey is your personal journey, and when you have you can tell who's been there, like who knows what. It's different for everyone. Like my personal reason, it was I I don't think I'm ready to truly share what I saw, but I do, like, to extent, but I know that it showed me what I needed to see and who I needed to forgive in this particular lifetime. So that's why I know what you mean. Like I was able to see where time and space doesn't exist the way that we think it does. And with your near death experience, you can see how you said you felt like you were trying to get back to your body for thousands of years. You were in that time and space, what I would call like a fifth dimension, so to say. Like fifth dimensional being can see all different aspects and all realities, all timelines playing out, but they can't like truly interfere with those timelines. But like when you get into this particular space and you said like your higher self was talking to you, not as someone you didn't know, you got it. That's quieting your mind. Your mind was quiet at that time to talk to that thyself. So, and I feel like certain people tap into that quiet mind through meditation, psychedelics, or different ways. You had a near death experience, and that's what taps you into that. So you entered that space where everybody describes as a euphoric state of mind. It's very euphoric, that feeling of being homesick. You felt as one with these people. You felt this etheric, and you were receiving this etheric knowledge. As soon as you said that, I had the tingles in my head, and they were just like bursting at that point because I knew exactly where you were. You entered what is known as the Akasha, this realm where not too many people have the ability to access, but it can be achieved through meditation and knowing thyself. So it's like you were granted access there because you gained knowledge to yourself. And that's what I find beautiful. And I am glad you shared this because I feel it. I feel it. When I start feeling it here, that's when I know, like, okay, this was a really great interview so far. And I'm glad you shared this. So you can definitely get as deep as you want.
Well, I appreciate that. But yeah, so, so there was that. And another way that I've learned that the universe has been talking to me is, like how you mentioned, time isn't linear. Like we're taught to believe that time is linear. And my entire life prior, I used to believe that time was linear. I now understand that time is more stacked upon itself in layers. And one thing that the universe has shown me, I've actually had a really beautiful moment. And the moment that I want to share is, I remember there was this moment where I actually went back, come to be. Like I remember seeing things like the land come out the water. And I remember seeing like the plants growing from the land. And I remember seeing, like, not only have I seen it, like I remember how happy I was when it was happening. I remember, like, it was equivalent to what somebody would say when they said that they fell in love. That's what it was like. And that's when I knew that this was real. Because me going through all that I went through, like you would think like, oh, is he having a mental breakdown? Is something isn't right? What is he taking? Like people say whatever they want, but and honestly, that's okay. People say whatever they want because people are entitled to their own opinions, the same way I'm entitled to mine. So that's okay. But but for me, that's when I realized how real this was, when I was able to experience that. I experienced it with my senses. I experienced it, with recollection, because these were all memories. These weren't things that I've made up. These are memories. These are things that I recalled because I've experienced them with my senses at one point, you know. Um, so now afterwards, I remember, I actually had an identity loss, and the identity loss was me surrendering the ego. It was me letting it go, me understanding that it was nice for what it wanted to do, because what the ego is designed to do, the ego is designed to protect us. That's the actual intent of the ego. It's meant to protect us for times when we're not sure about ourselves, or times that we feel insecure, or times that we feel uncomfortable. Like, the ego is a persona that is built up within ourselves, and it comes out when it feels like it needs to protect us. But even though that can be a great quality to have, the ego can also be greedy, and the ego can also want more, So before we know it, that ego is actually consuming our lives, and we put ourselves in a prison. So sorry, wait, excuse me. So when we refer to near-death experience, I would like to say this. It's more so the ego dying. It's not so much me, who I am, because who I am is endless. I have no purpose to die because I am only life. God is life, and anything that breathes life has permission to live. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. The ego gives the illusion of death. The ego, anyways.
Keep going. That's deep.
Yeah. So pretty much the day of my accident, or anybody's near death experience, whenever we have a death, it's us. Think about the ego in a box, right? And before you recognize that the ego is there, you're only living within this box. And this box is your limitations. It tells you what you're gonna do, it tells you what you're allowed to do, it tells you what you're not allowed to do, it tells you what you're not gonna do. So when I had my accident, all of who I was inside this box. And the dissolving of the ego, or the removing of the ego, was this box breaking, and me realizing that the reason why the box was there is because there was already something greater that made the box exist. And I am what's greater. You understand what I mean? So
Yes.
is me breaking away from this box to realize all of my truest capabilities, and by doing that, one thing that I learned is the way that our species is designed to grow. Like, the way our species is designed to grow, it happens through like, I don't want to say the word levels, because it's not levels, but I want to use the word, let's say there's just a process. The way that we grow as a species, and the way that we grow from the soul, it all starts with suffering. So you can either have healthy stress, or you can have unhealthy stress. Unhealthy stress is things that happen in our everyday lives. Oh, why does this have to happen to me? Oh, why does that have to happen to me? Those are negative stresses. The reason why those are negative stresses is because you're not going to find a proper solution for something you're not striving to overcome. So that's why it'll become a negative stress. But a healthy stress will be like working out, going to the gym, disciplining yourself to eat well, reading books if you're uneducated, because now you're stressing the body to do something greater, you know? So the way I understand this to be is, everybody goes through a phase of suffering. That phase of suffering is not designed to deplete us. That phase of suffering is designed to build us up. Once we go beyond the point of suffering, that's when the body will learn how to grow, heal, and evolve. And this is how we grow and become greater than what we think we could be. So like, for example, like, let's say working out, right? If you're lifting 10 pounds, right, at first those 10 pounds are heavy and you can only do like one or two. But now you've been doing it every single day, right? And a month has passed. So now you can do 10 to 20 of them and they feel easy, because you went beyond the point of suffering of that one and two, and you strived for three and four, then five and seven, then eight and 10, then 11 and 15, and then eventually 20, you know? So you went beyond that point of suffering. And because you push yourself beyond the point of suffering, the body says, okay, how am I going to handle this? How am I going to grow? Oh, we're stressing out the biceps. Okay, so now let's extract the information from our DNA, feed it to the body, and teach the body to grow. Once the body knows that information, you automatically know that information also, because you are incorporating this body for the moment. You know what I mean? So we take that same scenario and we do it for every single part of our lives. Also for me, I had a reading level of a third grader till I was about 22, 23 years old. That's not something that many people will ever even guess of me, you know. But when I was 22, 23 years old, I literally didn't know how to read, and that was a struggle for me, because even when I would open up my mail, I used to have people read my mail to me. And for me, that was a struggle because I didn't want to feel like, I didn't like feeling that dependent. You know what I mean? So I had a choice. My choice was either allow it to keep on happening or go through the growing pains and figure this out. Excuse me. So that's exactly what I did. So every single day for the past, I don't know, 8 years. Excuse me, I keep on burping.
Yeah, you're good.
Every single day for the past 8 years now, I've read and studied one word from the dictionary, and that was me stressing out my brain in a healthy way to learn how to heal, grow, and evolve. Now, I haven't, like, now when people hear me read or the way that I present myself in any way, I'm not saying I'm the most educated, not at all, because truthfully, I know nothing compared to what's really out there, you know? But what I will say is that you definitely won't guess that I had a reading level of third grader just so many years ago, you know? So, I also want to say, like, I feel it's very important to say this. When our mind, tells us that we can't do something, or when our mind tells us that we're incapable of doing something, that is just simply a thought. That doesn't mean that you actually can't do it. That just means that there's a possibility if you choose to do nothing about it. But when my mind speaks to me and my mind tells me, oh, I'm too weak, I can't do push-ups, I'm going to prove myself wrong right now, and I'm going to do push-ups. And the reason why I do it right there on the spot is because I don't want that thought lingering, depleting my energy for later. So that's why. And then the more I get into repetition of that, the more my mind realizes that it no longer has a hold on me. That ego, that box, it no longer has a hold on me. So its power diminishes little by little, and it gets weaker and weaker. So now, when you develop this relationship with yourself, you will now understand what is the voice of deception. And when you hear that voice of deception, you'll eventually reach a point where you can laugh at it and say, you know what? Good try, but not today. And you can continue moving your day forward, doing what's truly important in life. Because what's truly important in life is our joy and our love. What's more important than that? What's more important than joy and love? Like, we think that that's not a powerful thing. But if you're walking around with joy on your face and love in your heart, you can literally get whatever you want in this world. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I do want to make that clear. I do not mean that in a negative way, because there's the way that the universe works is there's polarity. So whatever power is on one side, there's an equal force on the other. So be careful what you wish for. But I do want to say, if you feel that you deserve whatever you're trying to chase, right? Because I can't limit anybody's capability of anything. Go get it. If you're able to dream it, It's not that you're incapable of having that dream. The fact that you dreamt it, it's already yours. You literally own it. That's why you dream it. All you have to do is become responsible of whoever owns that dream. You know, you have to wake up every single day and say, I don't have it yet, but I'm going to make myself responsible to go get that. I'm going to hold myself accountable to go get that. Because at the end of the day, the only moment that we truly have is right now. So if we're not making the decision to do it right now, what else are we truly waiting for? You know?
Man, let me tell you, this has probably been one of the most powerful interviews conducted, because you can see that you get it. You definitely had a taste of cosmic knowledge, and you came back like, and I relate to you in so many ways, like from experience what it's like to visit the Akasha to going through those stress. Because myself, I've never was able to read a book front to cover. Like I'd always start it and then I just put it down. I never gave myself though, I never allowed myself to just sit there and read something cover to cover. And when you were talking about octaves or the levels that you didn't want to use earlier, you reminded me of this book that I did read called The Law of One. It talks about how we have to go through suffering because it's the catalyst of growth to move on to the different octaves, these different levels. And what's also interesting was you said at one point you were able to see the earth and its creation. And that was the beginning stage. That was the genesis, the beginning. And you felt happy. So not only have you visited the Akasha, you entered this fifth dimensional space that allowed your conscious to travel back to the beginning. And you were also able to contact yourself through the time where you felt you had your identity death. Your suffering was the catalyst to your own growth. And now you came back and you are just constantly evolving, and you're showing it through, like, you see how love literally conquers all, from the love for your dad, your family, the gratitude that you have for all of them, the stressful suffering or the growth from reading. Like that's very powerful for you just to share that. And I admire that for you even sharing that, with the fact that you took the time out your day to not only change yourself physically but mentally from reading um, something from the dictionary, just to increase your vocabulary and your knowledge. You trained your mind to have that successful stress. And I couldn't agree more with you with the ego, because I feel like I always say the ego is literally edging God out, and your ego is not your amigo. However, it can be your biggest cheerleader, because the ego does give into these lower vibrational, these lower emotions that keep us human. So in order to like rise up the chart, the scale of consciousness, you have to go through the heart chakra. However, the ego bound you to those lower realms, and it doesn't allow you to feel these feelings you've already experienced. When you get from the heart, you go through the throat and then your solar, and you get to the pure bliss feeling from your head. Hence why I was feeling what you are feeling. That's why I felt it, because I know that you experienced this, and I know that you you're humble, like you're very grounded, and I feel that energy. And I'm glad that you took the time out of your day to conduct this interview, because you have a lot of knowledge that we're going to look back at this interview, and I'm going to use these notes and with my compilation of near-death experience interviews, ayahuasca. I just really enjoy these illuminating moments, and I really admire the relationship that you now have with your dad, because you did a form of shadow work in the way that nobody has ever done shadow work through a near-death experience. You're able to see, you saw the mirror of you through him, and that healed you. So I think that alone is beautiful in itself. But you came back and you know that like you have everything you need. money, riches. That is the common theme that I see everybody says. It does not matter about your accolades. It does not matter about how money you have. What does matter is the people who are in your life right now, everything that you have in this current moment, and how you are enjoying your time in this moment with your family, your daughter, your world, essentially, your wife. Like all these people are important. And I think we as humans caught up in the mundane routine and we get caught up in these accolades that we let the ego control us. Like, and I can tell when someone who is grounded and they let go of that ego. Like, there's a bunch of people out there who say, "Oh, I had an ego death," but yet they're still going about their life in weird ways. And you're like, you didn't really have an ego death. You just took an edible and you just, you know, you think you
Yeah,
had, but
you passed out.
I truly feel when someone has had that ego death. And my uncle's one of those people who I've yet to interview, but I think his experience almost rivals yours because he had a heart attack and died, and he just came back completely different. And he said
Wow.
that I see I'm ready to go whenever my time is, and I know that everything that I have right now, it's important. So I'm happy where I'm at right now, and I've realized that I've lived my life to its. I've lived my life happy. So
Yeah.
whenever my time is, I'm okay. And you could just met he was this very high strung person, and he's just mellowed out. Like he just does not care about any. I'm not saying he doesn't care, but what I'm like, I can sense when someone's been through a form of change, and whether that been from a near death experience or something triggered them to change. I know that your experience definitely humbled you and grounded you, and it's allowed you to come back with cosmic knowledge. Especially, it's like God literally pulled the veil from you and said, I'm going to show you everything, and I'm going to give you what you need to flourish in this realm. And you literally took the tools and you ran with it. So that I admire. But
Thank you.
I don't know if I want to hold up too much of your time because I really enjoyed this interview.
Well,
I don't know. I'm if you put this content out on TikTok.
I mean, to be honest, like I really don't. I mean, you're welcome to. By all means, yeah, do what you gotta do. Like I was putting out videos, and then I just kind of I didn't get distracted. I just moved on to the next thing for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, hello, oh, hold up, hello, hello. Oh damn.